I went to the shelter for a Labrador. Something small, manageable, normal, the kind of dog that wouldn't ask questions I couldn't answer, the kind that would fill the apartment with sound so I wouldn't hear the silence anymore. But I took a wrong turn past the bright kennels full of barking, past the volunteers with their clipboards, and pushed through a door that said staff only. The back wing was different. No barking, no movement, just the hum of lights and something else underneath, the sound of held breath. At the very end, in the last kennel, a Rottweiler stood facing the door behind me. Not pacing, not whining, not even blinking, just standing like someone had stepped out 30 seconds ago and told her to wait right there. Her whole body was locked, vibrating, like a wire pulled so tight it was about to snap. A volunteer found me and said, "You shouldn't be here." I couldn't stop looking at the dog's legs, at the way they shook. Why is she standing like that? The volunteer's voice dropped. Because she hasn't. Since when? 3 weeks. The shelter smelled like disinfectant trying to cover something it couldn't reach. I'd filled out the online form at 2 in the morning when I couldn't sleep again, checked the box that said first-time owner because saying I used to have a dog meant explaining why I didn't anymore, and I wasn't ready for those questions. The woman at the front desk smiled the way people smile when they're being paid to do so. Her name tag said Brenda. "We have some wonderful Labradors," she said, pulling up photos. "This guy's perfect for apartments." I wasn't listening. My eyes kept drifting to the hallway behind her, to a door with a handwritten sign, staff only, quarantine and medical. "What's back there?" Brenda's smile tightened. "Medical cases, dogs that aren't quite ready yet." "Ready for what?" "For people." She said it quietly, like an apology. "Can I see them?" "That's really not. They've been through a lot. It's better if—" I stood up. "Please." Something in my voice made her stop. Maybe she heard it, the thing I wasn't saying, the reason I was really there. She led me through the door without another word. The back wing was colder, quieter. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and beneath that, nothing. No scratching at gates, no whimpering, just the occasional shift of weight on concrete. Most of the kennels were empty, except the last one. I saw her shadow first, long and still against the back wall. Then her body came into focus, a Rottweiler, maybe 60 pounds, standing rigid at the kennel gate. She wasn't looking at me, she was looking through me, past me, at the door I'd just walked through. Her eyes didn't track my movement when I stepped closer, didn't flicker. They stayed fixed on that door like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. I crouched down slowly. "Hey," I whispered. Nothing. Her front legs were trembling, not shaking, trembling, the kind of fine vibration you only see in overtired muscles holding weight they can't hold anymore. "How long has she been like this?" I asked. Brenda's voice came from behind me, softer now. "Her name's Luso. She's been standing since the day she arrived." "When was that?" 3 weeks ago." I looked closer. Luso's paws were planted exactly parallel. Her spine was straight. Her head was level. Everything about her posture said she was waiting for something. Or someone. "Why?" I asked. Brenda didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice sounded tired in a way that had nothing to do with the hour. "We don't know, but she won't stop." I stayed crouched there, watching Luso's ribs move with each shallow breath, watching her eyes stay fixed on a door that would open and close 100 times a day and never bring her what she was waiting for. "What happens if she doesn't stop?" I asked. Brenda's silence was an answer. Brenda took me to an office that smelled like old coffee and paper. She pulled a file from a metal cabinet, and when she opened it, I saw photos of a different dog, Luso, in someone's living room, lying in a plaid dog bed, eyes bright, mouth open, and what looked like a smile. Her previous owner surrendered her 6 weeks ago. Older woman, 73, said she couldn't do it anymore. Do what? Watch her wait. Brenda turned the page. More photos. Luso standing in a doorway, Luso's head pressed against a door frame. In every picture, her body was oriented towards something just outside the frame. The owner had a daughter, college age, lived at home, then moved into the dorms. She'd come back on weekends, and Luso would wait by the front door the whole time she was gone. Normal dog behavior. Brenda's finger traced a line of text in the file. Then the daughter stopped coming home. The file doesn't say why, and Luso kept waiting. How long? 6 months. At the door. The owner tried everything, moving the dog bed, blocking the door, leaving the door open so she could see no one was there. Nothing worked. Luso just stood, staring, not eating unless food was brought directly to her mouth. I thought about the dog in the back kennel, about the way her legs shook. Why did the owner finally give her up? Brenda closed the file. She said it was like living with someone who was drowning in front of her every single day, and she couldn't reach her. The room felt smaller suddenly. Has anyone tried to adopt her? We haven't listed her. Why not? Brenda looked at me directly. Her eyes were the kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. Because our vet says if she doesn't lie down in the next 2 weeks, her body will start shutting down. My throat went dry. What do you mean? Dogs' bodies aren't built to stand for weeks. Her muscles are cannibalizing themselves for energy. Her heart is working triple time. Her kidneys are under stress from dehydration because she barely drinks. Something I wish I had known sooner. When an animal is this exhausted, this locked in survival mode, they don't cry out. They don't collapse dramatically. They just go still, quieter. And people think that means they're coping. But they're not coping. They're dying standing up. I asked if I could see Luso again. Brenda studied my face for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out what I was really asking. Then she nodded and led me back. I signed the papers at 4:30. Brenda tried to stop me 3 times, said Luso needed a foster home with veterinary experience, said the likelihood of recovery was almost 0, said, did I understand what I was agreeing to watch? I told her I understood. I didn't. They brought a stretcher to move her because Luso wouldn't walk, wouldn't break her stance. 2 volunteers lifted her rigid body, still standing, legs locked, and carried her like a piece of furniture. In the car, she stood in the back seat for 40 minutes, staring at my headrest, trembling. I could hear her nails clicking against the leather every time we hit a bump, and her body swayed but refused to fall. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. I had to carry her. She was heavier than she looked and completely stiff, like carrying a wooden sculpture. By the 2nd floor, my arms were burning. By the 3rd, I couldn't feel my hands. I set her down gently in the living room on the carpet near the couch where there was soft light and space and a bowl of water I'd put out that morning. She didn't look around, didn't sniff, didn't do any of the things dogs do when they enter a new place. She just stood there. And then, slowly, mechanically, her head turned toward the hallway, toward the door at the end, my daughter's door, the one I hadn't opened in a year. Luso took 1 step. Her back leg dragged slightly, then another step. Her breathing was labored, each inhale deliberate, like her lungs were too tired to expand fully. She walked the entire length of the hallway and stopped directly in front of that white door. And she stood, the same position, the same angle, the same locked knee stance she'd held in the shelter. I felt something crack open behind my ribs because I'd been standing there too. Not every day, not physically, but in every way that mattered. Since the phone call, since the hospital, since I came home to her shoes still by the door and her jacket still on the hook and her bedroom exactly as she'd left it, bed unmade, laptop open, a half-drunk cup of tea on the nightstand. I hadn't moved anything, hadn't opened that door, hadn't let myself believe that the version of the world where she existed was over. I looked at Luso standing at my daughter's door, legs shaking, eyes fixed, breath shallow, and I realized we were doing the same thing, guarding the same ghost, refusing to accept that someone could just be gone. Luso had been standing for 21 days, refusing to believe that the person she loved was never coming back. If you want to see what happens when two people learn to stop waiting together, hit subscribe. It takes 1 second. She'd been holding on much longer than that. The first morning, I woke at 5:15 to the sound of nothing. For a second, I thought Luso had collapsed. I ran to the hallway. She was still standing. Same spot, same angle, like she'd been paused overnight. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Her breathing was so shallow I had to watch for 30 seconds to confirm her ribs were moving. I brought water, set the bowl at her feet. She didn't look down. I brought food, the wet kind that smells like meat, placed it on a plate right in front of her. She didn't blink. I sat on the floor 3 feet away and talked to her, told her she was safe, that she could rest, that no one was coming through that door. She never looked at me. On the third day, I tried to move her. Gently, just my hands on her shoulders, trying to guide her toward the couch, toward somewhere softer than the hardwood floor. Her entire body went rigid, locked, like I'd hit a wall. I let go immediately. On the fourth day, I just sat, didn't bring food, didn't talk, just existed in the hallway near her, my back against the wall, my knees pulled to my chest. I watched her legs shake, watched the muscles in her shoulders twitch and spasm, watched the way her eyes never closed, not once, not even to blink. On the 5th day, I called the vet. Is she drinking? No. Eating? No. Has she lain down? No. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you need to understand something. Dogs in this state, dogs who've lost someone they were bonded to, they don't understand death. They don't understand never. They only know the person isn't there yet. I heard him shift the phone. And their brains tell them that if they move, if they stop watching, they'll miss it. They'll miss the one moment the person comes back. Something I wish I had known sooner. Animals in trauma look calm, focused, still, like they're meditating. But they're not. They're holding their breath. They're drowning quietly, and everyone mistakes the stillness for peace. What do? I asked. Be there. Don't give up. By the 7th day, I'd stopped trying. I just sat in the hallway, sometimes against the wall, sometimes lying on the floor, sometimes falling asleep there because I was too tired to make it to my bed. And every time I woke, she was still standing. We were both so tired, so tired. I started to think maybe this was it. Maybe this was all we'd ever be. 2 bodies holding vigil for people who weren't coming back. 2 people too broken to lie down. On the 9th morning, my phone rang. Brenda. How is she? I looked at Luso, still standing, her legs thinner now, her breathing more labored. "The same," I said. Silence on the other end. Then, "There's something I should have told you." I waited. Luso's owner, the woman who surrendered her, she didn't just give her up because she couldn't handle the waiting. Brenda's voice changed, got quieter. She was dying, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She called us from the hospital, said she had maybe a week and needed someone to take Luso before she couldn't make decisions anymore. I sat down slowly on the hallway floor. The daughter, the one Luso was waiting for, she'd been trying to take care of them both, her mom, the dog, but Luso wouldn't leave the bedroom door, wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink, just stood there while her owner was in the hospital, dying. Brenda paused. The daughter brought Luso to the hospital once. Security let her bring the dog to the room, and Luso just stood outside the doorway, staring at her owner in the bed. The owner was unconscious, on morphine, but Luso stood there for 6 hours until visiting hours ended. My chest felt tight. The owner died 2 days after we took Luso in. I looked at Luso's back legs, at the way they trembled constantly now, at the way her paws had started to splay because her muscles couldn't hold her form anymore. "Does she know?" I whispered. "I don't think so," Brenda said. "I don't think she understands that the waiting is over, that there's nothing left to wait for." After I hung up, I didn't move for a long time. I thought about my daughter's door, the one Luso was standing at. I thought about hospital doors, about how many hours I'd spent staring at them, waiting for doctors who would tell me something different than what I already knew. And I realized something. Luso wasn't waiting anymore. She was refusing to believe that a person could be there one moment, breathing, solid, real, and then just erased, gone, like they never existed. I understood that refusal. I'd been living it, keeping her room closed, keeping everything untouched, because opening that door meant accepting a world where she didn't exist anymore, and I wasn't ready for that world. I don't think Luso was either. Something I wish I had known sooner. Grief doesn't always look like crying or screaming. Sometimes it looks like standing, like refusing to sit down because sitting down means accepting that what you're waiting for will never come, that the waiting is all you have left. I moved closer to Luso, close enough that my shoulder touched her leg. She was so warm, feverish almost. "She's not coming back," I whispered. Luso's breathing didn't change. "I know you don't believe me. I don't believe it either, about mine." I closed my eyes. "But I think we're killing ourselves, standing here." Can you teach someone to stop waiting when you're still doing it yourself? I didn't know, but maybe that wasn't the question. Maybe the question was, can you learn together? On the 12th day, I sat directly in front of the door, not against the wall, not 3 feet away, right there, my spine pressed against the wood of my daughter's door, my legs stretched out, my hands in my lap. Luso was standing 18 inches to my left. I could hear her breathing, ragged, wet sounding, like something inside her was coming apart. Her name was Sarah, I said. My voice sounded like a stranger's. She was 19, second semester of college. She called me on a Tuesday night and said she had a headache. I told her to take some Advil and go to bed. Luso's front left paw shifted, just a millimeter, like she was trying to redistribute weight her legs couldn't hold anymore. She had a brain aneurysm. It ruptured while she was sleeping. Her roommate found her at 6 in the morning. The words came out flat, empty. I got the call while I was making coffee. I thought it was her. I thought she was calling to tell me the Advil worked. I stopped, looked at the door behind my head. It wasn't her. Luso's breathing changed, slower, deeper, like she was listening. "I don't know if I can open it," I said. Luso's legs stopped shaking. For just a moment, just long enough for me to notice. "Maybe we don't have to," I said. "Maybe we just have to stop standing alone." Luso's weight shifted against my shoulder, small, almost imperceptible, but there. We stayed like that, me sitting, her standing, both of us pressed against the same door, both of us not ready, but no longer separate. The knocking on the 14th day was violent, sharp, angry, the kind of sound that doesn't ask permission. I knew before I opened the door. My ex-husband stood in the hallway, his face red, his jaw clenched. He smelled like whiskey and aftershave. "You've been ignoring my calls," he said. "I've been busy." "Doing what? Sitting in a dark apartment with a dying dog?" He pushed past me into the living room, looking around like he was cataloging evidence. "The lawyer needs signatures for Sarah's estate. I can't finalize anything without..." He stopped. He'd seen Luso standing in the hallway, staring at him. "What the hell is wrong with it?" "Nothing. It's just standing there. Why is it standing like that?" I didn't answer. He moved toward the hallway, his hands gesturing, his voice rising. "This is what you're doing? This is how you're spending your time? Bringing broken animals into her..." "Stop." "Stop what? Stop saying her name? Stop acknowledging that you've turned this place into a..." He took another step forward, toward Luso, toward the hallway, toward Sarah's door. And Luso moved. She didn't bark, didn't snarl, didn't make a sound. She just stepped between him and the hallway. One step, then two. Her legs were shaking so hard I thought they'd give out, but they didn't. She planted herself directly in his path, her body a wall, her eyes locked on him. "Move your fucking dog," he said. I didn't. He said, "Move your fucking dog." Luso didn't move either. She just stood there, swaying slightly, barely able to hold herself up, but refusing to step aside. My ex-husband looked at her, then at me. Something in his face changed. "You know what? Keep the papers, keep the apartment, keep all of it." His voice was different now, quieter, almost broken. "I can't do this anymore." He walked past me, out the door, down the hallway. The door closed. The apartment went silent. I looked at Luso. She was still standing where she'd planted herself, but she wasn't facing the hallway anymore. She was facing me. Her legs were shaking worse than ever. Her breathing was labored, wheezing. But she'd moved. For the first time in weeks, she'd chosen something other than waiting. She'd chosen to protect. I knelt down slowly, put my hands on either side of her face. "You didn't have to do that," I whispered, but her eyes said she did, that maybe this was the only thing she could still do, save someone, even if she couldn't save herself. After he left, Luso stood in the middle of the living room, not at the door, not in the hallway, just there in open space, like she didn't have coordinates anymore. Her whole body was trembling now, not just her legs, everything, like she was coming apart at a cellular level. I sat on the floor near her. "You can lie down," I said softly. She didn't. Minutes passed, then an hour, then 2. The light through the window changed from afternoon to evening. The apartment got darker, colder. Luso swayed once, caught herself. Her breathing was wet, rattling. I thought about calling the vet, but I didn't move. I just watched her fight gravity, watched her refuse the most basic biological need, because some part of her brain still believed that as she stopped watching, she'd miss something. At some point, I don't know when, I stood up, walked to the hallway, stopped in front of Sarah's door. Luso's head turned, following me. I put my hand on the doorknob, turned it. The door opened. The room looked frozen. Bed unmade, textbooks stacked on the desk, a coffee mug on the windowsill with mold growing inside. The air was stale, trapped. I didn't go in. I just stood at the threshold, looking. Luso moved, slowly, each step taking everything she had left, her nails dragging against the hardwood because she couldn't lift her paws anymore. She came down the hallway, stopped next to me, looked into the room. "She's not in there," I said quietly. "Your person isn't coming back either. I know you think if you just keep watching, keep waiting, they'll come back, that you'll see them one more time." My voice cracked. "But they won't, and standing here won't change that." Something I wish I had known sooner. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean the person didn't matter. It means unclenching. It means releasing the part of yourself that's been holding a door open for someone who can't walk through it anymore. "She's gone," I whispered, "and I miss her, and it's not fair, and I would give anything to have her back." Luso took one step forward, into Sarah's room. Just one step, just over the threshold, and then her legs gave out. Not dramatically, not at all at once, just a slow, quiet fold. Her front legs buckled first, then her back legs. Her body sank down onto the carpet like something deflating. She lay on her side, right there at the threshold, half in the room, half out. Her eyes were still open, still watching the doorway, but she was down. I lay down next to her, right there on the floor, my face near hers, put my hand on her ribs, felt them rise and fall, slow, shallow, but rising. "You can rest now," I whispered. "You did everything you could. You waited long enough." Her eyes blinked, heavy, like she'd been holding them open through sheer will and finally had permission to close them. Outside, the sun set. Inside, for the first time in weeks, we both stopped fighting gravity. That night, we slept. Not well, not peacefully, but we slept. Luso stayed at the threshold of Sarah's room. I pulled a blanket from the couch and lay beside her, my hand resting on her side so I could feel every breath. She woke up 4 times. Each time her eyes opened wide, searching. Her head lifted an inch off the carpet before exhaustion pulled it back down. Each time I whispered that it was okay. Each time she closed her eyes again. In the morning, she stood up. Slowly, her legs shaking, her movements stiff and painful. I thought she'd go back to the door, back to standing guard. But she didn't. She walked into the kitchen, drank water. Not much, just a few laps, but her tongue touched the bowl. I made toast, sat at the table, watched her. I tore off a small piece and held it out. She looked at it for a long time. Then she took it from my hand, gently, like she'd forgotten how. The next few weeks were small victories. A full meal took 3 days. Walking outside took 6. Sleeping through the night took 2 weeks. She still checked the door every morning, Sarah's door. She'd stand there for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, her head tilted, listening for something that wasn't there. Then she'd come back to wherever I was. I still woke up at 3 a.m., still lay there with my chest tight and my thoughts circling, still thought about the phone call, the hospital, the way Sarah's voice sounded the last time we talked. But I got up now. I'd walk to the kitchen, pour water, sit at the table in the dark, and Luso would follow, lie down at my feet, her body warm against my leg. We were both still waiting for something, for the pain to stop, for the guilt to lift, for some version of ourselves that could exist without the weight of what we'd lost. But we weren't waiting alone anymore, and we weren't waiting standing up. One afternoon, I started packing Sarah's room, one box at a time, slowly. Luso would come in sometimes, lie down by the window, watch me fold clothes and pack books and cry quietly into t-shirts that still smelled like her. She didn't guard the door anymore. Neither did I. I thought about what the vet had said, about Luso's heart, about the 2-week deadline. We'd made it past 2 weeks, then a month, then longer. Her legs got stronger, her eyes cleared. She started eating without me having to coax her. But she still carried it. I could see it in the way she'd pause at doorways, in the way she'd look at me sometimes like she was checking to make sure I was still there. I carried it too. Some nights I'd wake up and panic, forgetting for just a second that Sarah was gone, reaching for my phone to call her before remembering. Those moments hurt worse than anything. But Luso would be there, her weight against my leg, her breathing steady, and somehow that made it bearable. We both knew the people we'd been waiting for weren't coming back, but we'd learned something else, that you can stop standing and still remember them, that lying down isn't the same as letting go, that grief doesn't end, it just becomes something you carry differently, with someone else who understands. Luso finally found her rest, and for the first time in a year, so did I. Stories like hers are the only reason to keep looking into the dark. Subscribe to stay with us for the ones still waiting. She never had to go back to that kennel, and I never had to stand at that door alone again.